At the beginning of this story, we are shown a man named Pai Patel who lives in Canada. A writer comes to meet him there, who has been writing a book for the last 2 years. After 2 years of hard work, he found that he was not able to write anything and tore up everything and threw it away. Pai says to him, "I cannot say whether you will believe in God or not, but I can tell you my story." After this, the whole story goes into flashback. In Pondicherry, Pai's father had a zoo. In that zoo, there were many beautiful animals, and among them, there was a Bengal tiger whose name was Richard Parker. When Pai was 12 years old, he wanted to feed a piece of meat to Richard Parker with his hand. Richard Parker was about to eat it when suddenly his father arrived. His father scolded him a lot, and to teach him a lesson, tied a baby goat outside Richard Parker's cage. Then Richard Parker came and mercilessly killed it. Seeing this, Pai became very scared, and from then his entire thinking about Richard Parker changed. Time passes, and Pai Patel becomes 16 years old. But then his father tells him that we are moving to Canada with the whole family because their zoo is now closing. The land on which their zoo was situated did not belong to them, although the animals belonged to them. Pai's father says, "We will take the animals on a ship. I will sell my animals in North America, and we will settle in Canada." Then we see the whole family on the ship. When their ship is in the middle of the ocean, a storm comes. At that time, Pai Patel is on the deck, and his entire family is in their rooms. Then we see that the ship is sinking and everyone is running. Pai wants to go to his family, but a crew member throws him into a lifeboat and says, "You go." But Pai does not want to go. He wants to help his family. When Pai is alone in the lifeboat, we see that a zebra jumps into the boat. Because of its jump, the rope comes loose and the lifeboat falls into the ocean. Now in that boat are Pai and the zebra. The storm is very strong. The ocean waves are very high. Then Pai sees someone swimming in the sea. He thinks it is a person, so he throws a tube to save him and pull him into the boat. But when that thing comes near, he sees that it is Richard Parker, the Bengal tiger. Pai tries to stop him from coming into the boat, but the huge waves push him inside. Pai jumps out of the boat, but he has no other option and must climb back. When he comes back, Richard Parker is not there. Only the zebra, who cannot move because its leg broke when it jumped in, it just lies there. The storm continues. The boat is shaking. By morning, the storm calms down, but water has filled inside the boat, which Pai throws out with a bucket. While he is throwing out water, suddenly a hyena comes out. It had been hiding inside the half-covered part of the boat. Slowly, the hyena becomes active and tries to attack Pai. But Pai climbs up to the tent part where the hyena cannot reach. He also has a stick with which he pushes it back. Then Pai sees in the sea a chimpanzee sitting on a bundle, floating away. Pai calls loudly and brings it onto the boat. Now there are four: Pai, the zebra, the hyena, and the chimpanzee. There is food for Pai and the chimpanzee, but not for the hyena. At night, the hyena kills the zebra. Pai fears that maybe at night the hyena will kill him too, so he ties a tube with a stick to the boat and hangs outside, sleeping on that. Next morning, Pai builds a small floating platform out of some things from the boat, ties it with rope, and stays there to protect himself from the animals. The hyena had already killed the zebra. Now only 3 remain. Soon the hyena comes out again, and a fight starts between the chimpanzee and the hyena. The chimpanzee hits the hyena strongly, making it fall. But the hyena attacks again and kills the chimpanzee. Pai tries to save it, but cannot. Pai gets very angry, takes an oar, and says to the hyena, "Come on." Just then Richard Parker comes out from below and kills the hyena. Actually, Richard Parker was hiding under the boat's cover. After this, Richard Parker also tries to attack Pai. But Pai throws his platform into the sea, sits on it, and ties it with rope to the boat so it doesn't drift away. He spends the night on that platform. Now he cannot go onto the boat because Richard Parker will kill him. But when he feels hungry, he has to go near the boat. He does not climb on top, but takes food from below. At that time, Richard Parker attacks, so Pai pushes away again. The lifeboat also has a survival manual with instructions for what to do if trapped at sea, and also a map. Pai doesn't know how to read maps, but he follows the instructions. Pai knows the sea journey will be very long. The platform he made cannot last forever, so he decides to train Richard Parker to control him. But his attempts mostly fail. The biggest problem is that there is no food. Richard Parker has already eaten the zebra and the hyena. And the biggest problem is water. Richard Parker has no water to drink. So Pai helps him, giving him water, and also tries to communicate with him using a whistle, showing signals. But Richard Parker remains very aggressive. Pai tries to catch fish, because he knows if Richard Parker becomes too hungry, he may jump and kill him. Pi tries a lot, but fails. Finally, Richard Parker himself jumps into the sea, trying to catch fish, but fails. Then he turns toward Pi. Pi quickly climbs the boat, pulls the rope, and stays above while Richard Parker remains below. Pi even raises his axe once, ready to kill Richard Parker, but stops himself. What am I doing? Instead, he helps Richard Parker climb back into the boat with a wooden plank. Still, Richard Parker is hungry. Pi eats biscuits, but for the tiger there is nothing. Finally, Pi catches a big fish, kills it with an axe. He feeds it to Richard Parker. At night, a huge whale comes near their boat, jumps, and shakes the water so strongly that Pi's platform turns over. All the food and water kept there is lost into the sea. Now Pi has nothing to eat or drink. Next morning, when Pi climbs onto the boat, Richard Parker comes out too. Just then a fish hits Pi and falls. Pi throws it toward Richard Parker, saying, "This is for you." But that fish flies away. It is a flying fish. Both Pi and Richard Parker stare. Then a giant school of flying fish passes, many falling into the boat. Even a large fish, chasing them, also falls into the boat. Richard Parker wants to eat it, but Pi snatches it. "This is mine." The tiger leaves it, so he starts eating fish. At the same time, he trains Richard Parker, trying to bring him under control. This time he is somewhat successful. Still, he cannot fully trust him. One night, a huge storm comes, and their condition becomes terrible. Pi's platform is lost. Now, both must remain together in the same boat. After many days, both become weak. Richard Parker just lies in one place, not moving. Pi puts his head in his lap and cries, "Richard Parker, we are dying." But destiny, or God, had planned otherwise. One morning, Pi wakes up to see their boat near an island. Pi steps onto the island, eats some wild plants, and explores. There he finds thousands of meerkats. In the middle is a freshwater lake. Pi bathes there. Richard Parker eats meerkats. At night, Pi prepares to sleep on a tree. He sees that all meerkats climb trees, and Richard Parker runs back to the boat. Pi does not understand. At night, when he looks in the water, all the fish are dead, their bodies dissolving in the acid. Pi discovers this island is carnivorous. On the tree above him, he sees a fruit. When he opens it, inside is a human tooth. Pi understands the island eats everything, even humans. At night, all water turns to acid. Any living being would die. Next day, Pi eats vegetables, fills the boat with plants, water, and meerkats for Richard Parker. He calls Richard Parker, who comes back to the boat. Pi cannot leave him there, else he would die. They continue their journey. Finally, after a long voyage, they reach the shore of Mexico. Richard Parker steps off and walks into the forest without looking back. Pi, lying weak on the beach, hopes Richard Parker will turn and look, but he doesn't. This breaks Pi's heart, and he cries like a child. Some locals arrive and take Pi away. With this scene, the movie and the story end.